Well, hello everyone and welcome to this webinar on budgeting and financial goal secrets. I'm Rosanna Mangiarelli and I'm so very excited to have Tammy Barton here, of course, a very influential businesswoman and the founder of MyBudget. Tammy, great to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Rosanna.
It's so good that we're able to have this chat because a new year, it's about fresh beginnings, a time to make positive changes, and that means reflecting on our finances.
Absolutely. The beginning of the year is a really great time to have a look at your finances and particularly in relation to financial goal setting, it's a great time to be able to do that. So once you've set those goals and you put those goals together, you really want to make sure that you've got a plan to achieve those goals, because I always say that if you have goals without a plan, it's just a dream, and we want to make those dreams a reality. And the beginning of the year is a great time to do that.
Those goals sometimes seem so far away for so many people. What is the key? What do we need to do? How do we start?
I think when you're setting your goals, firstly, you want to be realistic and give yourself the ability to dream a little bit as well and work out what it is that you want out of life. Sometimes it's not just about picking goals or creating goals that are big ticket items. It can be things like you just want to go out for dinner every week, or you want to be able to go to the pub with your mates on the weekend. They are goals as well. So it's about looking at your long-term goals, your short-term goals and your medium-term goals. It's not just about, the one big financial goal that you might want to set to yourself.
So it's almost like splitting it up in three categories. Why is that important?
Because it's those little things. You want to feel psychologically like you're achieving things each week or each month. So you want to feel like that, because if you've set a goal that's going to take you 3 years to achieve, it could be a little demotivating. So you want to have those little things, those little wins along the way to help you feel like you're achieving things in your life that you want to achieve.
Yeah, it's almost like, to me, it sounds a bit like losing weight for those who want to lose, say, 5 kilos. If you've got your eye on that 5 kilos, it's going to be so much harder to achieve than, going 1 kilo, half a kilo at a time.
And you want to set yourself those little milestones along the way.
Yeah, it's like rewarding yourself. And if you do get to that point, it's a tick.
Yeah, exactly. And the important thing is, like I said, though, it's setting those goals, but then making sure that they're realistic in your budget. So, there's no point saying you want to take a $30,000 all expenses paid trip to Europe if that's not going to be affordable for you in the time frame. So you also want to be looking at the time frame where you're setting these goals as well. And what the budget is going to show you, how quickly you can achieve your goal. You might be able to look at reducing things in your budget and say, I don't need to actually go out for dinner every week. I can put that money towards my Europe trip and actually achieve that quicker than what I thought. So it's going to give you that visibility into your finances.
I like the idea of this, and it doesn't really matter where you are, financially in life. I just think everyone needs to have some sort of format of where their money's going. How does it start? How do we get from where we are to where we want to be?
The first step is just saying you want to do that, because that's really an important step. But then it starts with actually putting the budget together. And it could feel a little bit daunting to do that. Some people think, do I really want to know where all my money is going? Well, yes, you do, because it's going to help you to make good financial decisions in the future. So you want to start at looking at your income and all of your expenses. So the more detailed that you can make a budget, the better. But it can be daunting. So let's just start with the big ticket items, your rent, your mortgage, school fees, registration, all of those things. But everything that you can include in that budget is really important. The more detailed a budget is, the more successful the budget is going to be, because you're not going to get caught out with expenses that you didn't have in your budget. And of course, putting savings into a budget is crucial. It's important. 100% of our clients, when they join MyBudget, have that savings plan set up, because that is what keeps the integrity of the budget.
Right.
If any unexpected expense comes up, you've got that extra buffer in your budget. You've got that savings that you can fall back on, so you don't have to rely on credit.
I will get to that savings fund in a minute, but can I just focus on the actual, listing everything that we spend? And I'm sure there are plenty of people out there like me that, you know, you don't keep track. It sounds like being disciplined, but also being honest about where your money's going is the key.
Yeah, and it's not even necessarily that you're being dishonest with yourself. It's really hard to keep track of where you're spending all your money.
Yeah.
So my other tip would be to get your bank statements ready, or just have them online or print it out, because normally your bank statements are going to show you where you've been spending money, that and your credit card statements, and that's going to help you inform your budget. Because to be honest, most people do not know how much their electricity bill is going to be, or what exactly they're paying in rego and their insurances. And when you start to put it all down, it can feel daunting. So have those statements there ready to help you complete that budget in whatever format feels most comfortable for you.
And banks kind of make it easier too these days, because they do itemise where you're spending the money.
They do, which is a great start to putting that budget together. But what I always say is there's one thing to look back and look at where you've been spending money, but the important thing is the decisions that you make about where you want to spend your money in the future. Because in the past, you may have decided that you were having a champagne and caviar lifestyle, and there's nothing wrong with that. But moving forward, you might decide, I'm going to switch to burgers and beer because I want to create more savings in my budget, because I've got these goals, I've got this holiday that I want to go on. And importantly, think about the why you want to do that, because that's what's going to keep you motivated to stick to those goals. Like, why is it that you want to take a holiday with your family? Because I want to create memories. I want to visit my family that might be interstate or overseas. And that's the driving factor. That's what's going to keep you motivated. At the end of the day, money's money, but it's what that money can do for you in your life is what you have to really think about. So try and get that emotional connection to your goals, because if it's just like, oh, I want to save $5,000, but for what? What is it that you want to do with that? Because that'll keep you motivated to wanting to stick to that.
So there's a psychology behind it too, isn't there?
There's a lot. I mean, money is black and white, but it's actually more emotional than people realise. We make so many decisions based on our emotions, particularly when it comes to spending, particularly when it comes to saving. You know, we've all heard the term keeping up with the Joneses. You know, you may not necessarily need a Range Rover, but you feel like you should drive a Range Rover because everyone in your street may have a Range Rover, and that's a psychological thing. You could just drive a Kia. It's probably a better car than the Range Rover.
So true. But it is a frightening thought that, you know, and I think we're all a little bit guilty of trying to keep up with the Joneses as well, and having that nice handbag. Can I just ask, you know, I'm guilty of silly spending, and I'm sure plenty of people who are watching this webinar are as well. But sometimes we have unexpected expenses. How do we budget for that?
So that's where we go back to that savings. You want to make sure in your budget that you always have a surplus, which means you've got more income coming in than your expenses, and assuming you're sticking to your expenses, that you've got that surplus, but that you've also got that savings. We call them savings streams, and that is integral to keeping a really positive, healthy budget, because you might get an unexpected bill. And so you need to have a fund of money that you can access to be able to pay that spending fine and not be in a position where you're putting that on credit. And the other thing is, bills don't always come in as budgeted or as expected. Sometimes the electricity bill blows out. Sometimes, you know, the fridge breaks down. You need new tyres on the car. They weren't budgeted for. So you want to have that money available to access for things like that. It's really important, because otherwise your only option really is to access credit or credit products, which just really is stealing from your future you when you do that, because your future you is the person who's going to be paying that money that you've already spent. And that's ultimately, when you're using credit, it's not your money. It's borrowed money that you're probably paying interest in. And not all products have interest, but you're likely to be paying interest if you're using a credit card.
And then there's that vicious cycle. I just wanted to talk about that buffer. So I know a buffer is obviously important, and just to have some sort of savings, but what do you prioritise? Do you prioritise putting the money in that buffer or paying off debt? What's more important?
That's a great question, because if you have debt, you want to be paying that off. But we always encourage every client to at least have $1,000 buffer. And once you've got to that $1,000, then you want to concentrate on paying off that high interest debt. And then after you've paid off that high interest debt, the level of savings that we encourage clients to get to is to have 3 months of expenses saved up. It's going to be different for everybody.
Every household.
It just depends on what your fixed expenses are, but that's really what you want to get to. You want to pay off your high interest debt and your unsecured debt, and then you want to have that 3 months of expenses saved.
Are you surprised that a lot of people move to credit cards or loans, especially throughout, the Christmas period, just to make ends meet during the festive season?
Well, I'm not surprised because I've been doing this now for 25 years this year, actually. So I'm not surprised by it, but I see how and why that happens. Things still come up during Christmas. You may have money set aside for Christmas and Christmas Day and buying presents, but then you get this unexpected bill, or your car breaks down, or something happens that you were not expecting. And then you have to come up with the money from that somewhere. So then you use the cash that you had set aside for Christmas, and then next minute you're putting Christmas on credit or buy now, pay later, and you're left with this Christmas hangover. And we do see that every year, although Christmas comes around at the same time every year, it does catch some people by surprise, and generally not by design. Generally because other things pop up unexpectedly at that time of year.
Oh, you'd obviously have a strategy to help people out of that Christmas hangover?
Most definitely. So when it comes to that Christmas hangover, it's about putting the budget together, making sure that the repayments on the debts that you have are affordable, but it's also important to be paying more than the minimum payment. So you're actually paying down some of the principal of the debt that you may have accumulated. And when it comes to debt in general, there's different methods of paying down debt. And probably the one that I prefer, that I like the most, is the avalanche method. And that's where you look at your highest interest debt and you pay that one off it. So that makes the most financial sense, regardless how many credit cards you may have. Another method is the snowball method. And that's whereby if you've got, say, 4 or 5 credit cards, you might have one that has a balance owing of $500, another one that's $700, and one that's $10,000. You would pay off the smallest ones first. So you might get rid of the $500 one. Then you might get rid of the $700 one, and then you're left with the bigger one, regardless of what the interest rates are, even if they had a lower interest rate. And that sometimes relieves pressure. People think, I had 3 credit cards, now I've only got one. And that's the only one I have to deal with, regardless of what those interest rates are. And then the last method is the feel-good method, and that's where you may feel bad about a particular debt. So you've borrowed money off of grandma, and you don't like every Sunday sitting at lunch with the family and you owe granny money, and it doesn't make you feel good. So even though that might be an interest-free debt, you think, I want to pay granny off before I pay off my credit card. And so there's different strategies. But my preference is always to go with the avalanche because that makes the most financial sense because you're paying off the highest interest debt first.
Yeah, no, clever. Look, I'm almost 50 and
You do not look at
Oh, I thank you. But seriously, I have never really thought about budgeting until I was inspired by you 12 months ago. What you're saying all kind of makes sense, but sometimes it'd be so much harder, to put it on paper and to put things in action. What advice do you have, someone like me who's very new to all of this kind of budgeting concept, and to anyone listening who says, Tammy, you're making so much sense to me, how do I action it? Like, what's your advice?
The first step is, and I think you've taken it, which is I actually do want to do something about this. Like, I know I could be doing better, and you're not the only one. I hear this day in and day out. I earn good money, and I know that I could be doing better with my finances. And in fact, I think that's a little bit of a misconception about who the MyBudget client is. You must be struggling with your money, or you mustn't be earning a lot, but it's actually quite the opposite. Our clients are higher than average income earners, so they earn more than the average Australian, and they're not necessarily struggling. In fact, more than half of our clients are not struggling. They just want to do better with their money.
And just manage it.
And just manage it. So the first step is actually saying, yes, that's what I want to do. The second step is just putting the budget together. Just like I said, getting the bank statements, having a look at all your income sources and putting it on a piece of paper. Now, at MyBudget, that's what we do for people. So our clients don't have to do anything. We do all the heavy lifting. We put the budget together for the client for free. There's no charge for that. And that potential client can take that budget away and manage it themselves. Or we offer to manage that budget on the client's behalf so that we are doing everything. The client doesn't have to worry. And that really is the secret sauce. When I started this business, I thought I was helping people with their finances, which I am and have been. But really what I'm doing is taking away all that stress and giving people peace of mind that they can go and spend money and it be within their budget, and them not be, worried about how am I going to pay my bills? Am I going to have any savings? Can I take that holiday? In fact, I often say that you're a guilt-free spender because it's in the budget. So if you've budgeted for your holiday, you've budgeted for your clothes or your hair or whatever it might be, you don't have any of those guilty feelings because it's all in your budget. You're making all the financial decisions. We just give you the tools to help you to make healthy financial decisions, but it's totally up to our client. And what I see is that people put this budget together, and again, there's no tools really out there where you can look ahead and see, this is where I'm going to be in 12 months. How do I get there? And people can just make decisions. And I see this day in, day out with clients who are saying, I can't believe that that's where I could be. I could have been saving $10,000, $20,000 every year. And
just by making simple changes. Do you know what I find rather mind-blowing is that this is life, and it's obviously in this day and age especially in this critical time where cost of living has increased so much. Money is critical, isn't it? And that we actually haven't been taught these basics really, and that resources aren't really out there. Like if it weren't for companies like yours, that we just don't have access to how to budget and how to manage our money.
And that's right. And it's not something that is taught at school. And as I said earlier, a lot of the decisions we're making about money are emotional. We're not looking at, the practical aspects of managing money. We weren't taught. There aren't very good tools out there. In fact, the finance industry makes more money when you're not very good at it or you don't care about it because that's just the way that the system is set up. So putting that budget together is a game changer, a life changer, and in some cases a life saviour because people can get themselves very stressed out about the financial situation that they find themselves in.
We've seen so many success stories through MyBudget, which is fantastic to hear. One thing I wanted to ask you about is my husband and I, we've always had a joint account. I know a lot of couples have separate accounts. What would be the better way to go?
Joint account is always better. I mean, look, again, it comes down to personal preference. But when it comes to finances, with any partnership, any relationship, it's always better if you're on the same page.
Right.
And literally putting that budget together is what gets you on that same page. So there's no arguments about, you're going on this golf trip and I'm spending this on clothes and hair or whatever it might be. Those arguments just don't happen because you've both agreed to it. You can see it in the budget. You stick to the budget. You've got your money, I've got my money, and we're all on the same page. And in fact, what I hear very often is, and this is, again, I go back to when I started the business, I expected when I was walking down the street that if I saw a client, they might say, oh, thanks, Tammy, for getting my finances in order. But what I heard was things like, thank you, Tammy, you saved my marriage. My husband and I do not fight about money anymore. And that was when it clicked for me that really what the value that my budget brings is in that and in living your life without having to worry about those things. And you can concentrate on your relationships, your kids, your career, whatever it is. You don't have to worry about that part of your life because we take care of that.
And it sounds like we've already said, like it's a psychological impact as well, makes you feel better about yourself. It obviously improves relationships and improves family life if we've got control of our finances. That's extraordinary.
Yeah, well, thank you. And it also sets a great example for children.
True.
So many of our clients tell us that they feel like they're setting such a good example for their kids now, well, compared to where they were before they were a MyBudget client.
I really need to get on with my next step of budgeting with you, Tammy. Can I just ask about, we did touch on the emergency savings fund, obviously very important.
The savings fund, the emergency savings fund, is the most critical element of the budget. I mean, obviously, having a detailed budget and everything that you can think of in that budget is really important, but there are always going to be times where you decide that you want to spend more money or a bill comes in unexpectedly or an emergency arises. That fund is going to be the thing that protects you from having to rely on credit, and you won't get stressed out about it either because you will have that emergency fund there. If you get a bill that's come in and it's, $300-400 more than what you've budgeted, you don't stress about it because you've got a buffer in your budget. You've either got surplus or you've got that emergency savings fund. So that is really critical to reducing your overall financial stress, and it's the first step to getting you, on a great financial trajectory.
For an average household, you mentioned about $1,000 would be a good buffer. Is that around the mark?
Yeah, around $1,000 to $1,200.
Yep.
I mean, that's really the minimum number we want to try and get our clients to. Now, I know there could be some people listening to this who are thinking, well, at the end of every week, I don't have any money. But start somewhere, $20, $10, just contribute when you can, and it will slowly build up over time. And for those that have saved before may know this, but saving can become addictive once you see that balance starting to grow and you start to think about, what you might be able to spend that on. Because, of course, if you don't need to use that emergency buffer for anything, you can keep adding to it, and then it's money that you can spend on things that you enjoy. At MyBudget, we never judge people for how they spend their money. We just want to make sure that what you're spending is affordable. What you spend it on is, that's your choice.
Yeah.
It's your choice. It's our client's choice. But it's about just making sure that it's affordable for you and that you're not putting yourself into any kind of financial difficulty.
Just listening to you talk about at an event about 6 months ago, much like this, like people would be tuning in, I made a conscious decision to look at my food budget. And that's easy to track on your credit card and on your bank cards because it comes under supermarket or a food and drink, I think it comes under. And I made a conscious decision to try and halve it in a month.
And how did you go?
We did it.
Oh, well done.
We did it.
Well
and
done.
There was so much there. Like, I won't even talk about the amount, but there was so much saving in that 1 month. And that is thanks to you.
Oh.
And we have been able to do things because of being so clever. Probably only lasted about 4 months, but that's 4 months of that amount that we saved. And it was just extraordinary. It was just making these conscious decisions about, actually I will get that because that's actually half price, and I won't get that this week, but I'll get that next week. And just it was enlightening, and I've got you to thank for it.
Well,
and that's just a simple step.
Yeah, it is. And thank you for saying thank you to me, but really it was you who took the action.
True,
so
but
anyone that's
still
listening, it's up to you to take the action and make the decisions and do the things that you need to do to make your position, whatever it be, better. Ultimately, we will be there as your support, as your financial partner to do whatever it is that you want to do, and we will guide you the best way we can. But ultimately,
even if it's starting just, one small step, like tuning into this webinar already is the first step.
It is. And it's funny because you mentioned food. Mm-hmm. If I think about our clients, the number one thing where they underestimate where they spend money is food. Right. Because then they think, oh, I forgot that I get takeaway every now and then because I get home late from work and I got to feed the kids. And these are all normal things, but it's the underestimation of what they're spending. But then like you said, you can make a conscious effort to cut back. It was just mind blowing that you can get a box of vegetables at a takeout place for $20. So imagine how many veggies you can buy. I mean, I know, as we said earlier, the cost of living has gone up and veggies have all gone up in price as well. But with $20, how many vegetables can you get? Like, so much more, and that can potentially be a side dish for 3 or 4 nights. Exactly.
But, yeah.
I think Jamie Oliver said one of the reasons why there's this obesity problem is because of the effort it takes to peel vegetables when it's easier to just buy takeaway. And when you think about that, you go, wow, but it's not only is it better for you, it's better for the purse as well, the wallet.
Yeah, but it's also a worry when you go to the supermarket, and this has happened to me. It was a 24-hour supermarket, so things were a little more exorbitant, but my son was obsessed or is obsessed with blueberries. A punnet of blueberries was $9, and I kid you not, I turned that way and a bag of marshmallow covered in chocolate was $2. So you look at both of those, you want to make the healthier choice, but you kind of think if it's a financial choice, what one do you go
for? Yeah. I know. Blueberries, they kill me. You can buy frozen organic ones.
Yes, I do that too. Only when they're on sale now.
Yeah.
No, I've become quite savvy, but it is rather extraordinary, Tammy, how you guys can turn lives around. And I know it's a lot of information to take in, but it's kind of also really simple.
It is,
isn't it?
It is. And I want to just touch on what you were talking about. Budgeting doesn't mean you have to be tight or it's about just getting good value for money. You shouldn't pay more than you have to. So if you can, buy something or a cheaper brand, but it's the same quality, you should look out for that. Like we shouldn't be as consumers paying more than we need to. Doesn't mean you become tight, but also the most expensive isn't always the best. And I think sometimes we're trained to believe it is, but it's not always the case. I bought, the most expensive ceiling fan and it breaks within 6 months, and then you just go back to getting a middle of the road one and it lasts the test of time, lasts the next 5 years. So most expensive isn't always the best. So it's not about, I think people sometimes get scared when they hear the word budget, I have to cut back and et cetera, et cetera. It's not about that. It's just making better decisions and not paying more than you have to. And those small things, at the end of the day, they all add up, and the money is better off in our pocket, particularly in this economy that we're living in right now, today, where the cost of living has risen so much. Petrol's risen, interest rates have risen. We're actually not buying more than we used to. We're buying the same, but paying more.
Yep,
and so there's less surplus available for people.
And it's about being savvier. I just want to quickly touch on and I'm sure plenty of people tuning in would have done a Kmart trip. And this is me to an absolute T. You go to Kmart for a pair of socks and you walk out with a trolley full of stuff that you don't need. Being, again, conscious of what do we really need this, and what are we doing here? And when you're saying, oh, that's just $2, that's $2, oh, $3 for that, it all
adds up. And we've all been there, Rosanna. I'm like, I've gone into Kmart to buy a $10 item. I don't know how my trolley is full and it's now $120, but I go, oh, everything was such good value. So it is so easy to do. And as I said earlier, if that's what you want to do and you know that you're spending that much money, put it in your budget. Just say $200 a month or whatever it might be, incidentals, and then it's in there. And again, you go back to that guilt-free spending.
Well, it's in the budget, so I can do it.
It's in the budget. And if you don't spend it, well, it'll just be there and you can use it for something else. So again, it's just coming back to being mindful around what you spend. And like I said, there's no judgment on spending money. It's your money. You spend it however you like. But using a tool like a budget does give you that ability to look ahead and go, if I didn't spend the $200 a month or a week or whatever it might be at Kmart, if I can cut $200 of things out of my budget every week, there's $10,000 for me to take a family holiday and create memories that will last a lifetime. And it's just cutting out little things that maybe don't even make that much of a big difference in your life.
Probably more valuable than a vase that will gather dust in the corner of the house. And this is all well and good for families who have a regular income, but there are so many Aussies who actually don't. They might be part-timers, they might be fly in, fly out. What do you do if you have an irregular income? Can you still budget?
100% you can still budget. In fact, I would always go as far to say it's even more important to budget if you have an irregular income. So it's about looking at your income, seeing how much you earn, and then smoothing that out. Because, 1 month you might feel like a king, and the next month you might feel like a pauper. So you just want to make sure that you're keeping enough money aside to cover all of your bills and all of your expenses. But a budget actually solves a lot of problems for people who have that irregular income. Now, you do want to have an income coming in. You don't want to be going 3 months or 2 months without any income. So you do want to have a regular payment, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the same amount. You can still budget and still look ahead and plan ahead and make sure that you're keeping money aside for those months that might be a bit tougher where you're not earning as much money during that time.
Because it really can be on a freelance arrangement, feast or famine, can't it?
Oh, 100%. And we see that a lot. And we see it also even with people with monthly incomes, like running out of money before the end of the month. It's quite a similar thing. We've got to really smooth that income out and make sure over the 12-month period that you're earning enough to cover all of your expenses. And that's really the most important thing. When the timing of when the income comes in is less important than the overall amount, because that is the beauty of having a budget, because you can see what is coming up what you're going to be able to afford to pay and perhaps what you can't afford to pay, and maybe a creditor that you need to speak to or make an arrangement with just because of, the cycle of your irregular income.
So it can be done just a little bit differently.
Yeah.
For anyone who might be serious about wanting to come to My Budget, can you just give me in 30 seconds, what do you do? What's the first step and how do you take care of clients?
We work with the client to put the budget together. That's a free appointment where the client can take that budget away and manage it themselves, or we can offer to manage that client's budget. Now, most people take that option. And what that means is we pay all their bills for them on their behalf. Their income comes into a trust account that we manage on their behalf, and we pay all the bills in accordance with their budget plans. We put money aside for savings, and we make sure that the client's staying on track to achieving their financial goals. The client has an app and a members portal where they can see their money. They're in full control of their money, but they have tools at their disposal that they have never had before, which is really important, where you are able to look 12 months in advance, see where you'll be in 12 months and help you to make really good financial decisions. If I can distill it down, we're that good little angel that sits on your shoulder that helps you to make good financial decisions so that you can live the life that you want without having to worry about money.
In a nutshell, Tammy, how would you describe budgeting?
I think budgeting is really about having a plan for the future. It's a plan to help your life turn out the way that you want it to, because money is so interrelated with everything that we do. And a budget also helps to remove that mental load and just give you peace of mind that your life is going to go the way that you want it to, and you're not getting anxious or stressed out about your financial situation or the way things are going because you've got that plan in place. And when you have that plan, it reduces overall anxiety and stress and just gives you that peace of mind that you can live the life that you want and not have to worry about your money.
Is debt a dirty word?
I don't think debt's a dirty word. We need debt in our economy and in our society. It just depends on what type of debt we're talking about, because obviously
We've all got one.
There's good debt and there's not so good debt. And to me, good debt is maybe an investment in an investment property or your own home, a mortgage. Debt that's not too bad is, a car loan because you need your car maybe to drop your kids to school or get to work. And then there's debt that's not that great, which is, say, high interest, unsecured debt. But at times it saves the day. It really does. If you're in a position where you don't have any savings and an emergency comes up, and it's it could be medical, it could be that you need new tires on your car and you're driving kids around in that car. Relying on that debt can be very helpful to get yourself out of a sticky situation. So it's not that debt is a dirty word. It's just making sure that the debt is manageable, you can afford it, and you can pay it back in a reasonable time frame without too much interest.
What's the key to staying motivated to stick to a budget?
The key really is to think about what it is that you want out of life. Think about your financial goals. What are you working for? So if someone says to me, I want to go on a holiday to Greece, well, I would say, okay, why? Is there some significance with that? I really want to take my daughter because I've got family over there and they're aging, and for me, it would really mean a lot, and I'd create all these memories. So you want to get that emotional attachment to your goals so that you're more likely to stick to it. So you're going, oh, I want to see my yeah. I think that's what they're called.
Yeah, they do.
I should have probably done an Irish analogy. That would have been better. But
Greek's fine.
I feel like everyone's going to Greece, so that's why I'm using that one. But, so you want to have that emotional connection. I want to be able to take my daughter or my son or my children to meet their relatives, and that to me is really important. Creating those memories is really important. And so those things will keep motivated. You're like, I'm not going to go out for dinner this weekend. I'm going to stay home and cook and do a barbie and, not spend as much at Christmas this year, because I really want that in my life. And so that's what I'm going to work towards. I've got it in my budget and you can work towards it. So I think try to just create that emotional attachment to what it is that you want to achieve, rather than just letting, your money come and go. And I think that's a really important thing to helping you to stick to your budget.
I love the psychology behind it. For anyone, Tammy, how often should we be reviewing budgets?
So a budget is not set and forget. I say review your budget as often as your pay cycle, because things can change. Your income can change, for one. Expenses, like I said earlier, do not always come in exactly as you budgeted for them. So your budget is live and dynamic and it's ever changing. And at My Budget, we are looking and touching every client's budget every day. Like our system, if it's not us as the humans, it's our system in the background, making sure that everything is balanced and that clients are on their journey to achieving their financial goals or whatever they set out for themselves. So don't just put a budget together and look at it in a year, because I can tell you it's going to be quite different. Sticking to the budget is actually the critical thing and a really important thing. Having the budget actually means nothing unless you're sticking to it.
Using it. Yeah,
that's
better be
right.
a little bit proactive by the sounds of things. What are the risks, just briefly, living off credit?
The risks of living off credit is obviously the interest that you're paying. When you're living off credit, it means that you're spending more than you're earning. And I describe it as you're stealing from the future you. You're spending money that you haven't yet earned, and you're spending it now today. And so in the future, your future you has to earn that money to pay it back plus interest. So you're doing yourself a disservice when you are living off interest. Now, of course, if there's a reason why you need to live off of credit for a period of time, so be it. But if it's mindless spending and just overspending, you would really want to rethink that, because the risks of that is that you could get yourself into, financial difficulty. There's all the stress that comes with being in credit card debt, and there's a feeling of shame around that. And I believe that there shouldn't be. If you're putting a plan in place to pay it down, that is a really great first step, and you can stop those feelings of feeling ashamed of yourself for getting into that position. But of course, I try and say avoid it if you can. The best way to avoid it is to have a budget and a savings plan and that emergency savings buffer, and as much savings as your budget allows.
I guess we all make mistakes, but taking this step is obviously the most important thing most of us can do. Tammy, my budget turns unbelievably 25 this year, which is just extraordinary. Can you take us back? I remember you once saying that your business started on a kitchen table.
Yes, it did. It started on my my kitchen table at home. I had a cordless phone and, one of those computers that had the huge back on it. I was actually working at the time at a solicitor's firm, and I was doing their trust accounting and studying accounting at night. The managing partner said, could you take over the debt collection business? As luck would have it, someone left, and he said, look, you seem like a smart girl. Could you take it over? And I was like, sure, no worries, eager. How hard could it be? Like, it's so eager. And it was when I started to talk to clients and say, what can you afford to pay back on your debt? I can see this is what you earn, et cetera, et cetera. I realised that people didn't really know what they could afford to pay back on the debt, even though they were earning good incomes. And I could see and hear that they were quite stressed about their situation. And so I thought, well, really, I could help these clients by helping them to put a budget together, but taking it one step further and actually managing that budget on their behalf so they stuck to it. And so that's where the idea for my budget came about. And from there, the business grew through word of mouth referrals. I moved from the kitchen table to the lean-to of my house that leaked when it rained, so I always had towels on the ground, and eventually invested in building proprietary technology, purpose-built just for my budget, which gave us the platform to be able to continue to grow. I was getting all these referrals, but I was doing everything so manually that I realised that I needed to invest in that. And so I invested in that technology, and from there the business continued to grow and thrive, and we grew around Australia, helping over 130,000 Australians, which is just incredible. I feel very privileged every single day to be able to feel like the work that I do on a day-to-day basis is changing someone's life. When my head hits the pillow at night, I sleep soundly because I feel like I'm not out there selling people something they don't need. I'm actually genuinely working towards eliminating financial stress in the community.
This is what sets you apart from so many others, is that you have this genuine desire to help. 130,000 Australian families is rather extraordinary. It must be very rewarding.
It's very rewarding. And I must say, though, it's not just me, it's a team. And it's a team of people that have worked tirelessly over the last 25 years. People have come and gone, but everybody has contributed, and everybody is there for one reason, and that is to make a difference in a client's life. If you work at My Budget, you're not there to clock in and clock out. You're there because you genuinely care about changing someone's life and doing that through helping them with managing their finances.
And it seems like all your staff are very like-minded, which really, augurs well.
They are all very like-minded, and I feel very grateful to each and every one of them. It's not an easy job because money can be emotional. So sometimes, dealing with things that are outside of your comfort zone, but ultimately we can always go back to our core, that the things that we're doing are really fundamentally making a huge difference in that client's life. And so that's really our anchor, is to come back to that always and go back to why do we exist? What are we doing here? We have staff that might get stuck on calls or in appointments well into the evening when they probably want to be at home with their own families, yet they're helping other families. And for that, I'm very, very grateful to my team.
Well, obviously you're good to them too, but 25 years, what a milestone. What does it mean to you?
I mean, 25 years, I can't believe it actually, like a quarter of a century. I feel like we're still a baby in a way. We've come so far, yet we've got so far to go. There's so many more people that we could be helping. There's so many more things that I want to be able to deliver to our clients and keep improving upon what I think is already exceptional customer service, but keep evolving and growing with our clients. And again, it is something to be proud of, operating a business for 25 years, but it comes back to the people, the team. I'm just so incredibly lucky, and I feel inspired by my clients every single day. They inspire me. They are the ones that help me get over the hurdles in business and the challenges that we face, because they are the courageous ones who decide to change their life. And for me, I look at 25 years and I say my clients are a reflection of the work, the smiling faces, the not being stressed anymore, the saved marriages, the children who grow up whose parents are still together. I mean, all of that is really meaningful to me. The inspiring thing is all the clients that we've helped over 25 years. And we've still got so many clients that have been with MyBudget for such a long time. And it's just incredible. I've been sending videos every now and then to clients who have been with us for 20 years and 18 years, just a personalised video message. And I'm like, is there still more? Like we've got so many clients who've been with us for such a long time, and they just say, I don't want to leave. Why would I ever leave the MyBudget service? Because what would I do?
It must feel so good to be such a trusted brand. What you do is extraordinary, and we have, mentioned already that you have helped so many South Australians and Australians. You're everywhere now, and you make it sound very simple. What I love the idea of is that your clients are in control. And I love that you're judge-free, that they're in control and you're just a figure over them, just watching and guiding. So much to be proud of. Congratulations to you and your team on 25 years, and here's to another 25.
Thanks, Rosanna.